For over half a century, Canada has been a world leader in the production, use, and development of life-saving medical isotopes. The world is counting on Canada to expand this leadership role to support the diagnosis and treatment of cancer, ensuring medical equipment is safe for use, and to tackle some of our greatest challenges in health sciences. Welcome to the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council's Isotopes for Hope podcast with your host, James Sconiak, Chair of the CNIC. In this series, we interview Canadian leaders who are making a difference every day. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Isotopes for Hope podcast.
I want to welcome everybody to this edition of our Isotopes for Hope podcast. And we're doing this series of podcasts from the Canadian Theranostics Leadership Summit here at the Mars Discovery Centre in downtown Toronto. This is a summit hosted jointly between the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council, University Health Network, and Canada's medical isotope ecosystem. And it's a great opportunity to bring together the entire isotope supply chain here in Canada and really talk about the important leadership role that Canada can and will continue to play in the production, the use of medical isotopes, not only here in Canada, but around the world, and contribute to our goal of doubling medical isotope production by 2030. And I'm thrilled to have a number of distinguished leaders from our isotope sector joining us. And today I have Dale Schick-Martin from Saskatchewan's Fedoruk Centre. Dale earned his master's in physics from the Guelph Waterloo Physics Institute for his work that he undertook and led to develop the Guelph nuclear microprobe. He's worked as a cyclotron operations specialist, and as people know, we talked about cyclotrons are a key supply source of medical isotopes, along with research and power reactors. So his extensive experience in terms of the operation of a cyclotron. But in particular, during his work, he was personally involved with the on-site commissioning of 7 different cyclotrons around the world. So not only experience at the Fedoruk Centre cyclotron in Saskatchewan, but around the world. And as people know, cyclotron technology is absolutely critical in terms of securing the supply source of medical isotopes. He has a long and distinguished career and now is responsible for all daily operations at the Fedoruk Centre facility, but also not only leading operations, but maintaining a research-ready state. So the Fedoruk Centre and Canada's overall isotope ecosystem can continue to innovate and save lives. So Dale, thanks very much for joining us today.
No, thanks very much for the introduction. That was great.
So Dale, tell us about the Fedoruk Centre. There are so many great things in the province of Saskatchewan when it comes to medicine and nuclear power. I know Saskatchewan is well known as a major producer of uranium, and that's what those of us in the power reactor business focus on. But the Fedoruk Centre is a real Canadian gem. Why don't you tell us about the Fedoruk Centre?
Sure. So its full name is the Sylvia Fedoruk Canadian Centre for Nuclear Innovation. So it is based in Saskatchewan, and it has a mission of placing Saskatchewan among global leaders in the nuclear sector, whether that's academia or industry. It is a great organization that I work for, and they have a couple of missions within the province. One is to support research work that goes on there in Saskatchewan. So any leaders in the province who are working with nuclear materials, whether it's neutron imaging, radioisotope work, radiotherapy studies. We also operate the Saskatchewan Cyclotron Facility, and so that's the cyclotron facility that I'm in charge of, and that has a TR-24 cyclotron, so it's a 24 MeV. The energy scale of it is kind of at the medium scale. So that facility there is both to be a producer for the local hospitals to supply the PET scanning radioisotopes, and it also serves as a research facility. So we are very comfortable inviting users of all stripes, again, whether they're academic or industry, to come in, use the infrastructure we have there, and we keep the place kind of, like you said, research ready. And so that is one of the very valuable resources that we support and one of the ways that we facilitate innovation within the province.
That's amazing. And obviously a lot of patients in Saskatchewan really rely on the important work that you and your team do. Can you talk about the role that the Fedoruk Centre plays outside of Saskatchewan?
Yeah, we mostly are interested in promoting the Saskatchewan nuclear sector, but that is definitely involves us going outside and saying, here we are, we're doing great things. One of the very direct activities we have is for our neighboring provinces, Manitoba and Alberta, when they have any unforeseen outages or they plan their outages, we serve as a direct supplier of the FDG to their PET scanners when they need it. And so we are very collaborative. We're there to really kind of facilitate any of that work. And likewise, we don't restrict the access to the facility to groups from Saskatchewan. If there's any group that's interested in visiting the facility, we're open to those discussions. And we've housed other researchers from mostly within Canada still, but a couple of times even outside Canada.
So we've talked a lot in many of the podcasts about reactor-based isotopes, whether it's research reactors, power reactors. We did have Catherine Hayashi on in our last series from Triumph, so obviously a large cyclotron there. For our listeners, in sort of simple terms, can you explain how you make an isotope in a cyclotron?
Oh, yeah. So the simplest explanation I can come with is the reactions in the nucleus rely on those fundamental particles that we talk about. In the case of the cyclotron we have, and most of the medical production cyclotrons, we're talking about the acceleration of protons. So we take hydrogen gas, we crack it down into an ion, just an electrically charged atom. That's then accelerated through the radio frequency structure of the cyclotron, the accelerator. And then it's accelerated up to a set energy. So those energies that we choose for the cyclotron are based on what we call the cross-sectional, or the cross-sections, the interaction energies. And so what we do is we have a target material. The proton is accelerated up to the energy. It strikes that target material. The proton then interacts. Usually the simplest interaction is that a neutron is then removed. So we change the element inside the target into a different element because we've changed the number of protons present in the element. And now that previously stable material has become radioactive.
So you're really creating another form of energy. And you've talked about, and we're going to give everybody a test on that after we should have done it. So, but it's a great, simple explanation. So you're creating another form of energy. You talked about the role of the center, both in terms of meeting the needs of people in Saskatchewan, neighboring jurisdictions. Now I really want you to kind of take it through to a healthcare setting. So you produce these isotopes. Can you talk about what isotopes you produce and, what does it mean to a patient at a hospital in Saskatchewan?
Oh, yeah, certainly. So going through to the healthcare system, the most common isotope that we use for PET scanning is fluorine-18. That is made into a particular drug called FDG for short, stands for fluorodeoxyglucose. That is what's used in almost all PET scans throughout Canada, unless they're part of a specialized clinical trial. That is a drug which is particularly good at discovering cancer within the body.
Right.
So that's why it's been widely adopted. It's been used for quite a while now in that clinical setting, and it's excellent at staging cancer patients so they understand what the disease they have is, and the physicians better understand it so that treatment can be tailored and, the outcomes can be better explained to those patients.
So that's really helpful. So obviously a major source of diagnostic isotopes for people in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. And I really want to shift to, you've been all around the world. Great experience. When you think about Canada and you think about what you see here in Canada, can compared to elsewhere in the world, what is it that makes Canada unique in terms of this entire isotope ecosystem from your perspective?
From my perspective, Canada is a very interesting geography. The PET isotopes that I primarily deal with are very short-lived. So fluorine-18 has 110 minutes of half-life, so it's just shy of 2 hours, which means every 2 hours, half of it's gone. So when we talk about shipping to Calgary or Winnipeg, right, we can be talking about 7 or 8 hours to go from our door to theirs. And so in that time, we've lost the vast majority of the fluorine. So we have to make quite a huge amount to then get it into those cities. A lot of other jurisdictions don't have that as a challenge. If they are in a city of, tens of millions of people and have another city of millions of people nearby, you can be supplying 10 hospitals from one cyclotron facility. Canada is a little bit more one-to-one, where we have a few PET scanners within a city limit and a cyclotron there to supply them. And so, it's an interesting model as compared to a lot of other places in the world for that distribution.
Well, and obviously you've really refined that distribution, given the, I live in Bruce County, and I think the geography is large, but Saskatchewan and the Great Prairie Province is obviously some more unique challenges there. Maybe just take a little bit of a step back. So one of the areas that we're talking a lot about at this Leader Summit, we have great leaders from the provincial level of government, federal level of government, municipal, regional. We have First Nations governments here. When you think about the role of isotopes and the kind of public policy support we need, I know you have a very close relationship with the government of Saskatchewan. Can you talk about the importance of that public policy environment for not only what you do, but where we think we need to take the sector?
Oh, yeah. So I think it's extremely important for the groups, for us to be close to those government groups, to explain really the benefits that come from having that kind of infrastructure nearby. Government offering support to make sure that the accelerator facilities are consistently, they kind of have a reliable base, so that when they're producing for the hospitals, producing for the healthcare system, that it's not something that has to be worried about. And so, it's really easy to explain just how impactful the work that we do is, because we have such the close tie to the healthcare system and its patients. You can point to the individuals who have gone through this and have been given much better care because you have these systems in place. And you can point to the numbers of people and extrapolate out to say, like, this is the impact. It's both personal and statistical. It's very powerful what this kind of system and this kind of infrastructure brings to jurisdiction.
So obviously you have some really well-established isotopes that are used day in and day out for patients. You've talked about that. I just want to shift the discussion now to sort of future isotopes or greater use of cyclotrons for the production of other types of isotopes, whether it's like actinium-225. You've obviously been around the sector for a long time. You operate a facility. What are some of the most exciting isotopes on the horizon for sort of the fleet of cyclotrons we have across Canada?
Oh, yeah. So I could go on for a while. They might have asked me that question.
That's okay.
Actinium-225 is a great place to start. It's a very interesting isotope that it's got such a promising clinical uptake, and it's very uniquely positioned that there's a few different ways to come at it, but each of them has a bit of a weakness. For the cyclotron production route of actinium-225, it's a good compromise between this amount that you can make without having to have a huge amount of starting target material. And so I'm quite optimistic that the cyclotron path for actinium-225 is the way to go. All of the other isotopes that are coming up, there is great work coming out of Edmonton to make lead-203, which is going to be a great theranostic isotope for the lead-212.
And what is lead used for?
So lead-212 is hopefully a possible contender with actinium. It's another possible alpha therapy isotope. Lead-203 is actually a SPECT isotope, and then actually has a pretty comparable half-life, or I guess it has a shippable half-life. And so a lot of places that want to use lead-212 therapeutics might look to the lead-203 to have a SPECT analog for the diagnostic side of things.
Right. So we're talking a lot about this at this conference here with all these leaders, including yourself from across Canada, about where we want to go and the really important role that Canada plays in terms of leadership around the world in isotopes. One of the questions I'm asking everybody is, if you were to fast forward 10 years from now, and it can be specific to your area of expertise, but broadly, where do you think we can be in 10 years?
That's an excellent question. There is a lot of opportunity. We're at a very exciting time where there's so many things that are built up in the pipeline, and I'm sure some of them are going to break through and break out and be very big deals. There's going to be a lot of demand on those particular isotopes, those particular drugs that are made. I think one of the things I could be most excited for is if in those 10 years we still have that pile up behind it.
That's right.
Yeah, if we've got a nice broad base of isotopes that we can test with, we've looked into all the different production methods and have a kind of semi-reliable kind of backbench set. I think that we can keep ourselves in that position where things are always exciting. And I think that if we do put some support and investment into that isotope production, whether it's accelerators, reactors, the electron, the LINAC style production methods, all of that could be extremely exciting and kind of could continue that exciting trend as these things break out, as these drugs come online, and as other sectors get interested in using radioisotopes for similar purposes.
So, Dale, we've been talking a lot about talent. A lot of times we look at this sector as a technology-based sector for obvious reasons, but fundamentally it's the people in the sector that do all this amazing work and the team that you have and you mentor and that you're growing. How should we look at from a strategic perspective on a national level, the development of a talent pipeline for our isotope sector? How do you deal with it in your facility? Because obviously the people that you're recruiting from have a lot of options.
Mm-hmm.
And so how should we think about the talent piece? And with new generation of talent coming in, how important is the mission to them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super thankful for the team that I have at the facility. We have got great people that are learning a lot and contributing a lot. But one of the big challenges is that a lot of the people that come to the facility don't come from some other facility. They didn't go to school for, isotope production, or even if they did, like a pharmacy background, the radioactive side of it is usually new. And so I think there's a great strength in looking at how we can make all of this isotopes work more accessible, and how we can have a lot of other sectors intersect with us and use all the different tools that these isotopes provide and get a lot of people more comfortable, more familiar, so that when they provide mentorship going forward, this is another tool in their kit and they're very comfortable sharing it, and the next generation's even more comfortable working with it. And I think education programs are wonderful. I've been lucky enough to have a few people that have put on workshops kind of around Canada, but it is a bit of a weak spot for us. And I'm very grateful for the people that are taking those initiatives to put those workshops together to get more people trained, even my own people at the facility.
Yeah.
Just to get them more exposed to and how is it done over here? And I hope that we can start to build that into something more than these one-off workshops that we've got, this consistent pipeline. And I think it's a good priority to have.
Well, Dale, I think your comments hit home. And one of the things I often like to say is we want Canada to be the Silicon Valley of isotopes. And while there's a lot of great things about Silicon Valley, maybe the weather, although I think Bruce County is the most beautiful place on earth to live. You may disagree. I'd say it's Saskatchewan. But what makes these areas is the people. And so investing in the people, investing in that workforce is absolutely important. This podcast is all about raising awareness. So we like to thank our listeners for joining, because without that awareness, it's going to be tough for us to mobilize the support to realize this vision. But most importantly, everything we're doing is about patients and making sure that they have some hope in some of their most difficult times. So Dale, on behalf of the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council, I just want to thank you for joining us today. And also back home in Saskatchewan, to everybody that works at the Fedoruk Centre, thank you for what they do. They make a big difference every day. I know you're proud of them, but we're proud of them as a sector as well. So thanks very much for joining us. I'll be on again sometime.
Yes, thanks so much for having me here.
Great. Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council Isotopes for Hope podcast with James Sconiak. Please share this podcast and follow us to stay in the loop. To learn more, please visit our website at canadianisotopes.ca.